Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Royal Sussex Live. Welcome, one and all. Okay, let me see who was here first. Oh, okay. Fancy, fancy. Thank you so much for being here first. Greatly appreciated. Juliet Holder Fowler, Lydia Washington, Francilia Mosley, Carol Lunn, and who else is here? Angela M64. Okay, Helen Marmon. Church Nellie, Mary H., Shirley Holland. Uh, okay. Let me see. Oh, good night, Church Nellie. Church Nellie's like, we got to talk about this here. Okay. All right, let's get on with it, shall we? Going out of business. Everything must go, especially the Ford Fiesta. All of it needs to go. It's all rubbish, if you ask me. Let's get on with it. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have reinvented the royal tour. If you ask me, that actually happened some time ago. Their reinvention of the royal tour, I'm going to say that was when they went to Africa while they were still part of the institution. I felt as though that was a template for how royal tours should be conducted. And in spite of all that they shared at that time, what did Willie and Kitty do? They went to the Caribbean and they cosplay not Harry and Meghan this time, but the Queen and Philip. What could possibly go wrong? Well, losing half of the Commonwealth, that could go wrong. Coming back with a bill for $330 million from the Trenchtown man. And of course, the prime minister saying, we're moving on. We're moving on. A lot of things could possibly go wrong. And they did. It was the funniest thing. I tell you, you all who do the mute challenge, enjoy yourself. I want to stick around and drag and read and mock and do everything that I can to make them feel as low as a well digger's behind. And when they decide to stop doing that to our faves, then I'll stop doing it to them. But since that day has not come about yet, I am going to drag and drag and drag. I'm going to point out every inconsistency that I can find because that's the way they like to do it. I'm petty AF. Let me see here. Hey, Cookies and Crane wants to say hi to a few people. Hey, Legs. Legs wants to say hi to a few people. And so does Mary H. Hey, Novi D. So, we've known that Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, was a proficient Spanish speaker that is ever since her pre-royal days when she spoke about her stint working at the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires. But it wasn't until this weekend during her 4-day tour of Colombia with Prince Harry that the public saw those skills at work. At a Sunday panel in Cali, the country's third largest city, Meghan delivered remarks in Spanish at an event aimed to uplift the nation's Afro Caribbean women. And you know what? I'm going to say that there was a greater and more profound appreciation for Meghan's display of really good talent in comparison to some of the petty stunts that other people in that institution has pulled. And let me just say this, none of this started until the whole leaking and briefing and working with the royal rota um, from Kensington Palace. That is where it all started. This idea that they want to drive Meghan away. And it turns out that she had so much more strength and character to the point where you could not even measure how much resolve that she has and how much she loves her husband. And so, what seemed like it was going to be a very easy thing, driving that, what was that he called her, that bloody woman, driving that bloody woman away. Well, it wasn't so easy. She did leave, but she took Harry with her. And every day, for the past, let's see, I guess since Nigeria, I mean, it was before that. Don't get me wrong, it was before that. But Nigeria was the first time that many people in the press collectively said, well, they didn't really say it, but it was implied we made a big mistake. The ones who need to say it the loudest won't say it, but we made a big mistake. And now it is even more abundantly clear than ever before that they made a huge mistake. And the offer that was on the table was refused. Now they're saying that the Queen refused that offer. I can believe it. The Queen was always very, cut and dry about these things. But I do believe that if those other two that were in the room in a position of authority, if they would have said, it's not a bad idea, and just like they did a trial with the no half in, no half out, they could have done a trial with the half in and half out, but they wouldn't hear of it. It was just a trial. It's easier to back your way out of something like that than it is with a lot of these stunts that they have pulled behind the scene. As Cookies and Cream said yesterday, they have given license, and no more evident was that license than Kate making the royal family, the Where is Kate, the laughing stock of planet Earth. They did that. That clumsy rollout, all that kind of stuff. If the Sussexes were there, nobody would have noticed. Who would have noticed that Kate wasn't doing anything? We don't expect her to do anything. But when she tried to rise up and show that American, this is how you Duchess, it was an epic fall from grace. It was an epic fall from grace. And they haven't stopped falling since. And I would be lying if I didn't say, or if I said that I wasn't enjoying the performance, but I am enjoying it. It's what they deserve. Cookies and Cream said the unroyal family has foolishly opened the Pandora's box by attacking the Sussexes. The run royal family has given license to disrespect the entire family. The royals have become sad global clowns, right? Thank you again, Cookies and Cream. They are the laughing stocks. And how could you not? They're doing all this medieval dinner and joust stuff, and the rest of the world has moved on. And it is something to laugh at. The way they dress, all these weird robes and stuff. Camilla coming out in the same cape that her mother-in-law wore, looking like a big sloppy mess. Elaine Parker. Oh, why is my bell? Okay, there we go. Thank you so much for the super sticker, and thank you for watching Royal Sussex. Because we are in your country, my husband and I can feel this embrace from Colombia. It's incredible, she said. The culture, the history. You know what's still different about, and I was thinking about that real time while they were there. You know what's missing? Hold on a second. Let me do this properly. Okay, where are we? Come on, Your Majesty. Where are you when I need you? Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Philip and I look back fondly on our first visit to Colombia back in 1897. We were so close to the turn of the century. Why, we had to come over by longboat, don't you know? That's what's missing. And if it wasn't that, then if it was any other family member, they would say that the well, when the queen was alive, they would say, "Oh, the queen remembers fondly, and she sends her warm greetings and all that kind of stuff." There's no mention of the sovereign, or there's no mention from a sovereign, even though these are royals visiting. You don't hear that stuff about the long-standing relation between our two nations. You don't hear all of that stuff that is actually an ingredient of every speech. That's what was missing. There's a few talking points that is part of every speech. Oh, let me see here. Uh, Many has asked, so I wanted to share an update on VS Speaks. She has been ill, but uh, in on the men, but is on the men, and hopes to return on Saturday. Please pray. Thank you so much for that, Lydia. I did not realize. And as you said that, I'm just like, well, she hasn't been stopping by that much lately, but I just thought it was the weird hours. But I didn't realize that she had been ill. So, yes, you guys, please do pray for VS Speaks Royal. She has been pretty much a daily fixture in the Sussex community, and usually starting our days. And unfortunately, I haven't been up in the mornings to watch, so I didn't realize that she had been away. So thank you so much for letting me know. But yeah, if you are listening, VS Speaks Royally, all of our prayers for you, and please, come back when you can, but take your time and just make sure that things are right. But we'll be looking forward to seeing and hearing from you. So thank you so much for letting me know. I feel so bad. I had no idea. I kind of got caught up in the everything with the Sussexes. I haven't been paying much attention to anything else. Connie Bomber! Hey, Connie Bomber. Okay. So let me see. Were made at the invitation. Okay, it was made at the invitation of government officials. So for Nigeria, it was the head of the defense, and for this trip, the vice president, who, don't forget, has a documentary coming out soon. And in both cases, they were very successful. Um, and there'll be more to come, I'm sure. There will be more to come. And so far, The British media has really shown their wickedness by dragging the countries that they visited. And it's one thing to make that point about, oh, he can go to Nigeria, um, but he can't come here, and England is so much safer. It's safer for the majority of people, except for people of color, people of non-Christian religions, and of course, anyone who's migrated. It's not safe for them. There are people that would hunt them down in the streets. And even without all of that I just mentioned, um, with verified information from the police, from the head of the anti-terrorism, that the Sussexes' lives have been threatened. That is not made up. Neil, what is his name? Neil Busa, whatever his name is. He said in a very clear voice that there has been an epic amount of threats against them. And when it comes to a threat on someone's life, the perpetrator only has to get it right one time. But as for the person who has been targeted, you have to be right every time. The other rule is if someone is willing to exchange their life for yours, then that makes you a target. That makes you an easy target because that person is willing to go to the extremes. Um, and that's a scary person to have out there lurking around. So no, it's not safe for them. Um, it's just not. They're safer going to other places, and I don't care what travel advisories there are that is, um, they're still much safer, and that's just the truth. And that is why Harry did not want to stay at. Let's see, they said Charles offered him to stay at one of the royal residences, and Harry said no. He'd rather take his chances at a hotel. And could you blame him? People have hopped the fence on royal properties. There was someone before the Queen died that had what was it? One of those straight bows, long, whatever that thing is. Um, he had an arrow contraption thing. Um, and what's his name? The Duke of York. There was a time when he was out walking in the garden at Buckingham Palace, and the police didn't recognize that big Yeti lurking around the garden, and they nearly beat him to a pulp. They literally knocked him off his feet. And then there's been all the mysterious. Which royal property was that where they kept, or was it more than one royal property where they found people unalive on the property mysteriously? No, it's not safe. It's just not. It is not safe. Even the White House, while Obama was president, someone jumped over the fence and made it all the way upstairs to the East Room, the level where the East Room is, which is the largest room in the White House. You always see it on television for the state dinners when they give out the awards or decorations or whatever. He made it that far. He just jumped the fence and he moved really fast, and it didn't seem to be anyone who could stop him. So, no, the royal residence is not necessarily safe, especially when we just have to acknowledge the fact that with all of the, oh, thank you, Elaine Park, it was a crossbow. Oh, it was the grounds of KP. Yeah, see, I remember that one. Um, Also, we have to remember that as and I keep thinking about this. Hugh Grant said that when his house was burglarized, he was afraid to call the police. And the reason why is because it seems like anytime they put in a call to the police department, a photographer, a paparazzi, one of the paparazzi shows up first. You can get a pap faster than you can get the popo. And I think about that every day. I think about that every day. Um, with the Sarah Everhart incident, she lost her life, and that was from what? A police officer. And then, of course, the very honest, upstanding, upholding police, what did they do? They put Meghan's name on a police report when it was actually Kate Middleton that broke the law. She broke the law. That was an unlawful act for her to defy the authorities and show up at this memorial. So at first they said, well, she was just a private citizen. What about the law? What about the rules about people staying away from large groups? Well, she was acting on official duty. What about the rule that everyone wears a mask? She was the only adult in the crowd that was unmasked to make sure that you could see her face. She did a walk around the memorial and they put Meghan's name on it. So if Harry doesn't feel as though it's safe, then it's probably not safe. Whatever it is he wants to work out with Rayback, with the authorities, then it must be something that he can trust. But as it is now, just give us a little notice, 28 days notice before you come. They don't want him to come over, and they especially don't want Meghan, because people will actually see how lacking the rest of that family is, especially Charles. Oh, yeah, Secret Weapon Sophie made herself safe by taking out old ladies who threatened to take one of her dresses for their kitchen curtains. Yeah, it's something about Sophie's motorcade. They just don't know how to stay off the pavement. They spend more time up on the pavement than they do on the city streets, which is so weird. I mean, because you would think that there's more room on the street, but if you go on the pavement, there's things like some poor old lady leaving the supermarket, or what was it, a secretary whose car got rammed by her motorcade. Yeah, she has a pretty bad record when it comes to pedestrians and motorists. Don't know what the hurry is, but yeah, you're right about that. Thank you. I almost forgot about that. Spend more times up on the sidewalk than they do on the streets. Poor old lady didn't stand a chance. uh, oh yeah, that the side that faces the south side of the building, right? The side that faces the Lincoln Memorial. I'm sorry, the Washington Monument. That was open, but during Bill Clinton's time, the Secret Service made the request that they close that one street where you were able to drive past the White House, which I think was a good idea. It made sense. It made sense to close it down because it it would have been more dangerous, I suspect, to any pedestrians or tourists out there on the streets should someone try to do something terrible. So I agree with that closure. It's a good idea. Okay, let's move on. So Prince Harry and Meghan Markle look madly in love as they recreate iconic wedding photos. That is according to Hello Magazine. Hello. And yeah, they 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 were supposed to be worlds apart, according to the tabloid media. And it was so strange that someone from the tabloid media confessed to going over to LA and couldn't find anything. There was that chatter, but there was also people saying at that time that there was going to be the announcement of a royal divorce in 2024. And I guess the only way to avoid that royal divorce was for someone to take ill. And then all of a sudden, no more talk of divorce. But yeah, there was definitely something in the works, but it had nothing to do with the Sussexes. Okay, and then you can see they have these are all the photos that they had in the oh, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex couldn't keep their hands off one another during their tour of Colombia. But there was one moment where they looked more in love than ever as they accidentally recreated intimate wedding moment. Oh yeah, I see what they mean. Were they okay? Okay. Well, I mean, it's not that intimate, but okay, I get what they're saying. During the visit to Unidad uh, rec, I think that's the recreation center, recrea, recreativa, something like that. El Velado, where they watch salsa and hip hop performances. Prince Harry grabbed his wife's hand and for an impromptu dance, twirling her around with a cheeky smile plastered on his face. Yes, it was very cheeky. Okay. Yep, they got out all those photos. All right. Hi, Deborah Anderson. Thank you so much for being here. YM Droid, Rachel Mawara. All right. Heather Stroud, thank you so much for being here. And then, okay, so there's this very curious article from one of those papers that don't, um, well, okay, the Express. Do you guys remember when some guy had added up a 24-hour period and he displayed which papers, well, we know which papers they were, it was the usual suspects, but he actually gave a count, and there were almost 50 articles related to the Sussexes, mostly Meghan. In 24 hours, there was, I believe it was 52 articles. That is insane. What is there to talk about? So the Express, the the term newsworthy doesn't always apply. Most times it just does not apply. With them, they don't care so much for um, the quality. They try to get the volume out there. They're all about the volume. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find that slide. Let me see. I go to newspaper. This little section I keep very well organized or reasonably organized for just such. Oh, there they are. There they are. Okay. I'll show you. Take a look there. That is the Daily Express. Um, oh, wait, where's the other half of that? 19 was not the entire thing. Daily Mail was 31 that day. Oh, yeah, there's the Express, 50. Yeah, exactly 50. What was the other one I had? Oh, that was the Telegraph. Oh, sorry about that. There you go. 50 articles in one day. 50 in one day. What is there to talk about? 50 articles in one day. Let me see. Can I make out any of those? Oh, wait. I see the word bombshell, condemn. Let me see. Where's another one of those words? Okay. Can you guys make those out? The first one, Andrew Neil delivers scathing. Oh, that's a good word. That's one of their go to words. Scathing Harry and Meghan prediction, heading for irrelevance. Heading for irrelevance. This had to be about 4 years ago, I think. Britain back Queen as Meghan Markle and Prince Harry row erupts royal family poll. Buckingham Palace to investigate after Meghan Markle bullying claim. Yeah, this is 4 years old. Camilla comes out fighting in new video as Meghan Markle attack rocks palace. Yeah, this is 2020. This is early 2020. Kate and William stand by Queen as royal family faces TV broadcast showdown with the Sussexes. It is just so, they sound so militant. You know what I mean? They sound so militant. Number 49. What Meghan and Harry are doing is despicable. Oprah interview betrays Queen Carol Malone. Oh, Carol Malone, no wonder. Worst crisis since the abdication. Expert lifts lid on Meghan Markle bullying claim. Now, just in case there's anybody who doesn't know, before the Oprah Winfrey interview, like what was it, a day or two before that, the palace wasn't sure what they were going to talk about. So they decided to orchestrate this campaign about bullying claims. In other words, the trope about the angry black woman. Yep, the angry black woman. Well, the thing is, they actually caused a bit of what is it? A spot of bother because they had one angry light skinned Harry who had had enough of it. So they gave it a year and didn't say anything. Then they had the Oprah interview, and for that entire year, there was nothing but leaking and briefing. They hadn't said a word. 31 articles, Daily Mail. Telegraph, 19 articles, and I forget what the other one was. But anyway, I had enough of these. Despicable it is. Absolutely despicable. Oh, you know what? Let me get moving here because I got some stuff I want to share with you. I got some stuff I seriously want to share with you. Sophie the secret weapon. One of many, I'm afraid. They have so many of those secret weapons. They're so secret, you can't really figure out which is which. Let's see. So Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's tour of Colombia has been a surprising success, and I'm not quite sure what to make of it. There's nothing to make of it except they are so much better at everything they do. That's it. Who wrote this? Nathan K? I don't know who that is. I'll admit I've been one of the first to criticize this. You don't have to admit it. All we have to do is all we got to do is go back and look at that 50 articles in one day. I'm sure a couple of them are yours. What do you mean the first? First, second, middle, last. That's what you do. Why do we even bother? Why do we even bother? Anyway, I'll admit I've been one of the first to criticize the Sussexes when they've stumbled. You criticize them for stumbling instead of giving them encouragement. Ain't that what you do when a person stumbles? You're supposed to uplift and encourage. Poor choice of words, wasn't it? Stumble. You know, if you mean when they've done something egregious, something foul, something cruel or mean spirited, but in this case, a stumble, you're going to go after someone for making a mistake? Anyway, first, their ill-fated Netflix documentary. Actually, it was the most viewed. It even crashed the website. What am I? I'm not going to bother with that. Let's see what else. Victimhood. Well, there has been an endless amount of attacks from both sides of the family. You have the father who stripped them of their security when they needed it the most. Um, when they were not living on a royal property, they were just on their own, right? And then, of course, his brother. And then let's not forget Camilla. Let's not forget Camilla and all of her connections with people in the press. We cannot forget Godzilla. That is something that we overlook a lot. We talk about it and we mention it, and then because it's not so obvious, most people don't discuss it anymore. Hello, is this the Daily Mail? Senior Royal here. I said Senior Royal here. What do you mean I sound like I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes? Anyway, that is one of the biggest perpetrators right there. One of the biggest, if not the biggest. This is the one who has orchestrated so many things against not only Harry, but William too. But William doesn't seem to be as affected by it because he seems to be an extension of her own family. Now they laugh and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Let's face it, the couple has struggled to find their footing since stepping back. They started a foundation in the throes of a global pandemic, right? A foundation which thus far has been successful. They managed to negotiate over $100 million worth of contracts between Spotify and Netflix. Does that sound like somebody who's struggling? We really need to choose our words more carefully. You're not struggling when you have the ability during a global pandemic to buy a mansion at half the price to found yourself and let's put it in order. They were rescued by Tyler Perry, somebody they didn't even know, right? So there you go. That's one. Number two, they managed to negotiate those contracts during the height of a global pandemic with all of the uncertainty. They got the mother of all deals from two different streaming services, one a podcast, the other Netflix. Is that somebody who is not sure, someone who's lost their footing? No. They were tenacious negotiators, and they got what they wanted. Number three, Number three, their foundation. Again, in the throes of a global pandemic, they managed to put together a foundation at a time when most people would be very insecure, considering we didn't know if we'd be around tomorrow. We thought that there wouldn't be anybody left but Tina Turner, Keith Richards, Madonna. You know what I'm saying? Every day I was wondering, what kind of world am I going to leave Madonna? What kind of world am I going to leave Keith Richards? And Mick Jagger, too. You know, people who are the immortals. What kind of world am I going to leave them? Maybe I'll try to be more sustainable with whatever time we got left. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's at their wits' end, but yet, instead of taking all of that money and just me, they started a foundation. They have helped a lot of people with that money, and they went out and did service, delivering food, preparing food, and such. They've done their service. Harry went to a polo fundraiser for Centabale and donated a lot of money of his own to that charity. Not only did he win money, he donated money. So it's easy to make these sweeping indictments about how poorly the Sussexes are doing, and a lot of people are going to believe that. But I think it's exceptional that they left in 2020. And this is what, 4 years later? I think they're doing okay. I think they're doing an amazing job. Let me see. Their attempt to carve out a new public identity have often been met with skepticism. Yes, it has, because the British tabloid media find every little thing to criticize, every little thread that they can pull upon. They will make some big campaign against them. Nobody told them to go to Pat Tillman's mother. Nobody told them to show up and stand outside of the Legends of Aviation. That was something they chose to do. They got people all over LA trying to find dirt on them. So, of course, they're met with skepticism. Isn't that the point of the tabloids? Is to point out everything that can go wrong for the people you hate, and you uplift the mediocre people like the Middletons. And for a quasi royal tour, every tour should be quasi. Every tour should be exactly what we saw in Nigeria and Colombia. It was as if the Sussexes finally understood what it takes to. Harry's been doing this his whole life. What do you mean they finally understood? And Meghan ain't nobody's fool. She has entered that family and absolutely redefined what a royal princess should be. What do you mean they finally understood? I'm offended. Hailed a success by the Sussex camp. No, I think most people in Latin America, Europe, pretty much the whole world has seen nothing but a success. It's not the Sussex camp. It's everybody. Everybody recognizes success. Most international publications have echoed this sentiment, recognizing the couple's efforts. It wasn't an effort. They were magnificent. It wasn't an effort. They just did it, okay? Couple's effort to highlight important issues, mental health, female empowerment. It was not an effort. It was like a lazy yarn. They showed up. They were knowledgeable about the issues at hand. They were credible. They were believable. People liked them. There was no great effort. It's what they know. They don't have to try to play catch up. They have a genuine working interest in everything they do. If they don't have any interest, they wouldn't do it in the first place. What a bunch of nonsense. Sussex team's execution of this tour was nothing short of a masterclass. Now we're talking sense in how to pull off a royal tour. It wasn't no quasi, it was a royal tour. Let's be clear. This wasn't, I'm through with him. Um, Camilla needs Will when King Charles III buys. Yes, absolutely. She needs him because she can't be sure exactly what type of tantrums he might pull on her. Although I'm really starting to doubt because listen, Camilla probably got some dirt on him. And if she don't have the dirt, I believe that the people at the tabloids know enough. I am thinking William is going to be a paper tiger when Charles goes and join the rest of the family down in that storm shelter at the Windsor Castle St. George Chapel. But thank you so much for the super chat. I believe that Camilla's got dirt and she is going to get her way. You know, a while ago, I would have believed that William was going to make her life miserable. I'm not so sure now. The only thing she would have to be afraid of is if Harry was sitting on that throne. But she got everybody riding around in that gigantic, misshaped, turn of the century brassiere that she's been wearing ever since Lane Bryant went out of business. Yeah, I'm afraid that she probably has the upper hand where that family is concerned. Yep, she has and continue to have the upper hand with that family. She literally have them eating out of her gnarly, gnawed up, chewed up looking hands. Deborah Anderson, thank you so much for the super chat. And again, thank you for watching Royal Sussex. So while it's easy to jump on the Harry and Meghan hate train, this time I'm staying off. They've shown they're capable of using their platform for meaningful work, and that's something worth acknowledging. Whether they can maintain this momentum, oh, you see what I'm saying? They come so close to a compliment, and then they have to make sure that they're still scoring some points for the enemy. What is that? Oh, there will. I didn't even look at that part. There will be always be critics, of course, ready to pounce on the Sussexes for every misstep, and I've certainly been one of them. But it's worth noting that this time they got it right. They've turned a potentially tricky tour in a country often overshadowed by negative headlines into a showcase of what they can achieve when they're focused on the bigger picture. Business as usual. Harry, let us remember what oh gosh, were you all in that conversation? It was on pedals, facts and 2 cents, right? Where one of the people that was there on the ground in Nigeria said that they had arranged this big welcome for Harry at the hospital to visit the veterans, and he made them take it away. He wasn't there for pomp and circumstance. That wasn't the point. He left Meghan 120 miles away because he wanted to focus on the veterans. Now remember, according to Angela Latrine, Harry is terrified of Meghan. Oh, she bullies him. And of course, that day that they were at the polo match, when she belted some woman who tried to come between her and Harry, remember that one? Harry's terrified of Meghan. So terrified, he left her 120 miles away so he can go and handle some business that he didn't want any type of distractions. No fault of her own, of course, but you know, it was just a matter of making sure that the veterans were highlighted and not any other things. So, no welcome for him, no big red carpet moment for him. It was just about the veterans. And the other cool thing is that they were able to highlight the young lady who had graduated from whatever military school in the UK, the first woman of African descent or from Africa to do that. So, yeah, I think that they got a good thing going. When they work together, they work as a team. Even if they're not in the same space, they still work as a team. And she just took her hand and she went, eh, eh, eh. And Harry had to run out of the villa so he could go and see the veterans by himself, albeit bruised and battered. She just makes up stuff. You know that, don't you? And she took her arm and she went, uh, uh, uh. She's a Hollywood actress. What a Fruit Loop. Well, this is what keeps her in those weird mushroom top wigs she wear. Is just making up stuff. The question now is whether they can continue this trajectory or if this will be another fleeting moment of success. They've had nothing but one success after the other. I'm still trying to figure out what constitutes a failure for them. What constitutes a failure? It has been onward and upward. So what constitutes a failure? I'm trying to figure out what is it that they wanted to do that they failed at. I can't think of anything. Harry's book is the best-selling nonfiction. Meghan knocked Joe Rogan off of his throne of 3 years with her podcast. Um, they've both been given these awards from various groups or foundations. What else? Oh, they been won all these court cases and still winning. Let me see. What would be a failure? I can't think of any. I really cannot. I'm trying to think. Is there anything that they wanted to do that didn't quite work out? I'm out. Can't think of anything. So Harry and Meghan too are branded less impactful than the royal family polls results. Uh-huh. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle concluded a 4-day visit to Colombia on Sunday, and we've asked Mirror readers if the tours are more impactful than the royal families. Well, what y'all think they was gonna say? What y'all think they was gonna say? Most people that support the Sussexes are not looking at the mirror. They're not looking at the pages of lies. I don't know why they bother to do those polls. They have no credibility. They are absolutely not scientific. They are not scientific. The only people that they can get involved with the polls are people who love their I mean, if you put the poll in a negative article, right? Instead of a balanced article where you say, well, they've done this, they've done that. This is the facts. This is what they have done. And this is what we feel is not right. Right. But there's no balance. It's always a negative story. And then at the end, there's a poll where you get a chance to express your hostility for somebody you never met, for something that they definitely did not do. Of course, the poll is going to say what you wanted to say. Recently marked their second international visit this year with a 4-day tour of Colombia. Seemed Mirror readers aren't and look at that. Mirror readers aren't convinced by their faux royal tour. Of course they're not convinced because you told them not to believe anything. Oh God. Are we that desperate? Becky the Blob. That's right. Becky the Blob. Oh wait, you got to hear this. You got to hear this. Let's just get on with it. I'm not going to explain anything. We'll talk on the other side. You got to hear this. As Oprah would say, nobody's going to believe it. Nobody's going to believe it. Tell you one thing. Could you imagine how many people have been calling the Sussexes trying to get them to come to their country? Just imagine that. How many places are begging Harry and Meghan right now to come and visit? There was a stampede after Nigeria. And then after this, imagine the possibilities. Or how about when they show up at the Olympics in Los Angeles? How about that? Nobody's going to believe it. I love when Oprah does that. Okay, where's Becky the Blob?
But I think he's almost clinging onto it like a comfort blanket. But I think what they forget is when members of the royal family are sent to these countries, it's on the request of the government with a really clear purpose. Their diaries are very strictly controlled to actually achieve that purpose, which is normally to benefit Britain PLC, politically, economically, culturally,
as
military
we saw when
ties.
Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, visited Colombia not so long ago.
Exactly. There was a very clear objective. And I think this was the problem with this trip is what was the objective, apart from just getting lots of nice pictures of Harry and Meghan smiling with people looking admiringly at them? I mean, I genuinely don't see what the objective of it was.
And we were talking about the sort of royal trips and the amount of media that would go usually on some of these visits. And with this, they had very limited media access.
Yeah, and I think actually, Jess, this was fascinating because obviously Harry again has railed long and hard against journalists like me, for example, who cover these royal trips. Generally, what he believes is a very close relationship between the press and the palace. And yes, you do get to know these people because you work alongside them. But I can actually say, a hand on heart, they do not try to control what you write.
Did you hear what she just said? Listen to that again.
What he believes is a very close relationship between the press and the palace. And yes, you do get to know these people because you work alongside them. But I can actually say, a hand on heart, they do not try to control what you write. There are too many trips for me to account here where I've written stories that have caused big problems for them. But because they're true, they accept we have a free press and we have a right to publish them. But in this case, Harry's team turned down every application from everything from the BBC to the ITV to even, very pro Harry and Meghan newspapers like the Telegraph in UK. All of those were turned down, and they invited one single digital journalist from Harper's Bazaar that didn't have a news background to cover their trip. But what they did was they asked that person to put out reports each day to any media that was interested. But of course,
everyone's interested.
Well, everyone's interested, but they weren't news reports. I know people who received them and said it was like reading something out of Mills and Boon. It was very saccharine. There were no news values in it. A lot of things were actually missed. Because they were deemed not worthy by whom, whether it was the journalist or the Sussexes, we don't know. But it wasn't a proper news gathering. I think he's almost clinging onto it like a comfort blanket. But
I told you, you would not believe it. I told you wouldn't believe it. They don't tell us what to write. All of those journalists in the Royal Rota write books about the royal family, and the royal family actually makes sure that the books are as they want them to be, and they have the final say before those books go out to the public. And how many times have they changed the headline of an article? Like the one where they said, Kate could be your friend 1 minute and your worst enemy the next. And within an hour, after a call from the palace, it was Harry could be your best friend 1 minute and your worst enemy the next. Somebody literally said, make that article about Harry. I got screenshots for a, a lot of this stuff, a lot of it, especially when they change the headlines. Are they changing the headlines because the editor suddenly lost their nerves? Or did they change the headline because the palace, the press office, called and said, wait a minute, you can't write that? Right? There's a freedom of the press, but yet the article about Kate being so tired, Catherine the Great, I actually made a video that includes all of the stuff that they took out of it. Now, I'm not going to tell you how I found the original article, but it's still available if you know where to look. It's still available. So they made them take about, I think it was 40% of the article out. And that was the article where, what's her name? Sputnik, whatever that lady's name is, the one who's related to the Russian aristocracy. She actually was very hostile and still is hostile against Harry and Meghan, but she did admit that the palace has been strong arming the media. So Becky the Blob is sitting there pretending like the palace better hope they agree to every. No, that's not the case. The palace and the press, they're in the bed together. They're in the bed together, and they decide what face the public is going to see. Everything from airbrushing to changing the names or the headlines and even removing portions of the article when it suits them. And you just heard her sit there with her whole chest and lie and say that that's not the case. We don't do that. We don't do that. Do you think that that could stand up in a court of law? Do you really think that would stand up in a court of law? Do you think if the Sussex's lawyers got a hold of them, they would be able to maintain that? I don't think so. None of that was true. The relationship, Charles spent the night or the day before his mother, the last day that he was Prince Charles, he was with the editor of The Sun. What's her name? The one who said, back off, leave Kate alone. He spent the time with her. I got the article where she said she was with him. These reporters routinely stay over at those castles and palaces. They don't just show up for the afternoon and all that pomp and circumstance. They sleep over. How many times do you think Charles and Camilla woke up with Arthur Edwards right there in between them? Huh? How many times do you think they woke up? Oh, Arthur, we thought you left already. Well, don't hog the blanket. Come on. Arthur Edwards, he's always there. Let me see. Marcelina Martinez, thank you so much for the super sticker, and thank you for watching Royal Sussex. I cannot believe that she just said it. They don't tell us what to write. We have freedom of the press. I'm sure you do. And you're free to go along to get along. And that's what you do. And what was that part she said at the end? Let me see.
I think he's almost clinging onto it like a comfort blanket. But I think what they forget is when members of the royal family are sent to these countries, it's on the request of the government with a really clear purpose. Their diaries are very strictly controlled to actually achieve that purpose, which is normally to benefit Britain PLC politically, economically, culturally,
as
military
we saw when
ties.
Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, visited Colombia not so long ago.
Exactly. There was a very clear objective. And I think this was the problem with this trip is...
You know what the difference is? They really wanted Harry and Meghan there. Nobody even noticed that Sophie was there.
What was the objective apart from just getting...
Yeah, and what was the objective? I just don't know what the objective is. I'm just so confused. What was that about? You know what the F it was about? It was about mental health. It was about online safety. It was about the Invictus athletes, veterans. What do you mean I don't know what the objective is? You know what it was about. And the fact that it benefits the Sussex's stature, which is already a mile high anyway. But that's the problem, is that this is yet more evidence that the Sussexes were very wise to leave.
Lots of nice pictures of Harry and Meghan smiling with people looking admiringly at them. I mean, I genuinely don't see what the objective of it was.
Isn't that what they do? They go get a busload of kids and bring them to the flower show so that they could look admiringly at that grinning Jacko, Princess of Wales. They go get a whole busload of kids for Kate, a whole busload of kids for Charles and Camilla, so that they could look at them and smile and wave flags and stuff. There's nothing organic about that. When was the last time you saw a crowd of young people racing to go and see Will and Kate? Huh? When was the last time that happened? And if those people do want to go there just so that they can smile at them, so what? But they had business to take care of. They had question and answer sessions. They had a meeting at the school where they let the students do the talking. And I guarantee you that if you ask Harry and Meghan about any of the workings of any of these groups that they are part of, or groups that the Sussexes, their foundation actually sponsors these events. They give out their tote bags. They rent out the halls and such. A lot of these events, they are either partners or they are wholly sponsoring these things. And she knows that. I wouldn't begrudge her from getting confused. I mean, with all of those jarring patterns all over the place, it's easy to forget what people do because, I mean, let's face it, you could have a seizure staring at those patterns could induce a seizure. You could have a grandma seizure looking at those dresses too long. So, of course, you don't know what they're doing. You are literally turning your brain into a coral sponge because of those dresses. So, yeah, it's no wonder you don't know what they do. But this is quite deliberate. both the pretending like you don't understand the Sussex's mission, right? That's deliberate. And wearing those god-awful dresses to confuse your enemies in case somebody after you or something. You know, I thought a polka dot elephant was just a in a children's storybook, didn't you? I mean, isn't there a storybook about a polka dot elephant? Huh? I'm just asking for a friend. And let's really get to it. Let's get to what the problem is. Shall we? Let's get to the bottom of it. If you were to send Kate and put her on the stage with all of those empowered women, what do you think the result would be when they pass the microphone to her?
Well, obviously it'd be, I would love to have met her, and she's obviously, she's an inspirational woman to look up to, obviously to this day, and, you know, going forward and things. You know, it is, you know, it's a wonderful family. The members who I've met have achieved a lot, and, you know, very inspirational. So, yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you, that's a real Rhodes Scholar there, isn't it? That's a real Rhodes Scholar. And they have the nerves to say that Meghan speaks word salad. Every time one of those tabloid reporters writes an article about Meghan, they always accuse her of word salad. One of the best spoken people ever in that family, or well spoken people in that family, and you accuse her of word salad? Did they not? This ain't got any better, you guys. This
And she's obviously, she's an inspirational woman to look up.
Nothing has changed. Now, yeah, you put a teleprompter and give her about 20 times, 20 takes, then you might get something. But if somebody asks a question off the cuff,
up to, obviously to this day, and, you know, going forward and things. You know, it is, you know, it's a wonderful.
huh? It ain't got any better. It's the same. It was like that in 2011. It was like that in 2021. And it's still the same today. And they're embarrassed by that. If you're embarrassed, just don't ask her to do anything.
And we were talking about the sort of royal trips and the amount of media that would go usually on some of these visits. And with this, they had very limited media access.
Yeah, and I think actually, Jess, this was fascinating because obviously Harry again has.
How many magazine covers did Charles and Camilla make on their first international tour abroad?
Railed long and hard against journalists like me, for example, who cover these royal trips. Generally, what he believes is a very close relationship between the press and the palace. And yes, you do get to know these people because you work alongside them.
You get to know these people because you sit there and eat from their table and drink from their bars and such.
But I can actually say, a hand on heart, they do.
Hand on heart? That won't be easy.
I think he's almost clingy. Nice pictures of Harry and Meghan smiling.
About the sort of royal trips and the amount of media that would go usually on some of these visits. And with this, they had very limited media access.
Yeah, and I think actually, Jess, this was fascinating because obviously Harry again has railed long and hard against journalists like me for it. Written stories that have caused big problems for them, but because they're true.
She's written stories that have caused big problems for them. I'd like to see one of those stories.
They accept we have a free press and we have a right to publish them. But in this case, Harry turned down, Harry's team turned down every.
And did she mention the Telegraph? Doesn't what's her name? Camilla Tominey, the one who accused the Hub Kitchen women of being terrorists, don't she work at the Telegraph? You mean to tell me the Telegraph is a pro Harry and Meghan? Just because Brianni Gordon wrote positive stories about Harry does not mean that that paper is not anti-Sussex. I don't know where she got that from. See, she's just making up stuff. They're hurt and embarrassed because the Sussexes refuse to allow them to come along so that they could sit there and nitpick and point out everything and ask these asinine questions about stuff that don't mean anything. If the newspapers in Colombia are not trying to destroy their character, why would they invite the very people that drove them out the country? The very people that drove his mother out of the country. Why would you invite them? When you got headlines, they didn't even tell the Queen. They blindsided the Queen. A knife in the back of the Queen. They're twisting all of those kind of headlines. Why would you invite anybody from the Royal Rota? There's something so sinister about inviting people to come along so that they can try to destroy you. Who does that? Mrs. Snuffleupagus needs to stop talking. Needs to stop talking to Big Bird. Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Now, let's get to this old creep. Oh, listen, you guys. They were out in force trying. When did the tour end? Monday? They were out in force trying to tear down that tour. Whenever, look at how many articles from real journalists that says otherwise, right? TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all over the place. People are going on and on about this tour. And then you get to the British tabloid media. They'll have none of it. They'll have none of it. They're going to try to force people. And the only reason why they're doing this is because the British people are paying millions of dollars for a royal family that refuse to work. There's no reason why William cannot work. You know, when people have a family-owned business and things are not going well, what do? They will spend 12, 15 hours working in their family-owned shop to make sure their business is successful. But for 22 million pounds a year, or 26 million pounds a year from the Duchy of Cornwall, that's how much William profits from the Duchy of Cornwall. That's his money. For that much money, he works when he darn well feel like it, and not a 1 day extra, and not a moment sooner. That's why they have to say quasi-royal tour. That's why they have to pretend that Harry and Meghan made no impact, like they went down there unprepared, that this is just some ongoing vacation, that they're on some second honeymoon or something like that. They're trying to convince people that they're gaslighting
She was still doing it now for our king, his father. But he chooses to do it for, I don't know, him and Meghan. That's it. It's them and nothing else. And, the saddest thing of all is that the king doesn't see his grandchildren. And he doesn't want to see Harry, and he doesn't see his grandchildren, which is a shame. And I think that's just a question of putting them on one of their private jets and bringing them over and say, there's granddad. And I think that would probably soften the king's heart. I think Meghan, you've got to remember, Meghan's an actress, and I think I see a lot of that in her. She just switches it on.
I want you to listen to that again. Did you hear the little dig he just threw in there? Listen to it again.
Still doing it now for our king, his father. But he chooses to do it for, I don't know, him and Meghan. That's it. It's them and nothing else. And, the saddest thing of all is that the king doesn't see his grandchildren. And he doesn't want to see Harry, and he doesn't see his grandchildren, which is a shame. And I think that's just a question of putting them on one of their private jets and bringing them over and say, children, which is a shame. And I think that's just a question of putting them on one of their private jets and bringing them over and say, private jets and bring his grandchildren, which is a shame. And I think that's just a question of putting them on one of their private jets.
Put them on one of their private jets. Put them on one of those private jets. This is the guy who spends a lot of time with Charles and Camilla. He works for the Sun as a photographer. After one weekend outing with Camilla, just out of the blue, there was a comment from Arthur Edwards saying that Camilla is much nicer than Princess Diana ever was, and so much easier to work with, just out of the blue. And this is why I said a lot of these comments like that, put him on their private jet, that's because he spends a lot of time with Camilla. I don't know how many times he probably has stayed over, and all of a sudden he felt something shifting near him, only to find himself face to face with a monster. Okay? And if not that monster, the other monster. I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. Nothing would surprise me about that. Every time they do something, is Arthur coming over? It's like Kramer on Seinfeld. He's just always there. Always there. He don't even see much of his own family because he over there with them. Rubbing Camilla's feet, no doubt. Or talons. Yeah, that's right. Over there rubbing Camilla's talons. Sharpening her beak. Put him on one of those private jets. And we all know who's got planes, trains, and automobiles. Charles and Camilla. And if you ask me, that new helicopter, that's for Camilla. So they can keep one in Camilla's house. One for Camilla, one for Charles, one for George, and one for William. That's why they need so many helicopters. So that when George and William need to be someplace together, they can fly back-to-back helicopters. That's the whole point of it. I promise you, I believe that's true. Buckingham Palace issued talking points about the Sussex's Colombian tour. You don't say. You don't say. Say it isn't so. Really? Talking points? I don't believe it, as I say sarcastically. No way. Way. Grazia recently published a piece from Emily Andrews all about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's Colombian tour, it's been abundantly clear to me that the talking points, quasi-talking points, were issued about this tour. But by whom? The talking points from the British media are, why did the Sussexes go to Colombia? What is the purpose of this visit? Why is Harry and Meghan acting like royals? And why do they insist on being so successful and famous? As you can imagine, the source of these talking points is no big mystery. It can only be, I can only imagine rather that the palace's Royal Rota WhatsApp group was quite busy in the past week, but Emily Andrews come pretty close to admitting just that the questions on everyone's lip back at Buckingham Palace is, why are they going? Almost as if she's quoting some palace flunky. Case closed. Case closed. It's exactly what it sounds like. It is exactly what it sounds like. Those are talking points from the palace. Just like the Republican Party here in the United States, they issue their talking points first thing in the morning, and especially Saturday night. So when they do all of those Sunday morning political shows, that everybody is in sync. Same thing. So they ask the same questions over and over again, just like Becky the Blob. They don't know why they're there. They don't know what they're going for. What is this about? Why are they trying to be royals? It's not really a royal tour. It's a quasi-royal tour. So I tell you what, if you could stomach it, I'll leave that up there. And let's do it again.
Team turned down every application, from everything from the BBC to the ITV to even, very pro Harry and Meghan newspapers like the Telegraph in UK. All of those were turned down, and they invited one single digital journalist from Harper's Bazaar that didn't have a news background to cover their trip. But what they did was they asked that person to put out reports each day to any media that was interested. But of course,
everyone's interested.
Well, everyone's interested, but they weren't news reports. I know people who received them and said it was like reading something out of Mills and Boon. It was very saccharine. There were no news values in it. A lot of things were actually missed. For some, because they were deemed not worthy by whom, whether it was the journalist or the Sussexes, we don't know. But it wasn't a proper news gathering. I think he's almost clinging onto it like a comfort blanket. But I think what they forget is when members of the royal family are sent to these countries, it's on the request of the government with a really clear purpose. Their diaries are very strictly controlled to actually achieve that purpose, which is normally to benefit Britain PLC, politically, economically, culturally,
as
military
we saw when
ties.
Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, visited Colombia not so long ago.
Exactly. There was a very clear objective. And I think this was the problem with this trip, is what was the objective, apart from just getting lots of nice pictures of Harry and Meghan smiling with people looking admiringly at them? I mean, I genuinely don't see what the objective of it was.
And we were talking about the sort of royal trips and the amount of media that would go usually on some of these visits. And with this, they had very limited media access.
Yeah, and I think actually, Jess, this was fascinating because obviously Harry again has railed long and hard against journalists like me, for example, who cover these royal trips. Generally, what he believes is a very close relationship between the press and the palace. And yes, you do get to know these people because you work alongside them. But I can actually say, a hand on heart, they do not try to control what you write. I could there are too many trips for me to account here where I've written stories that have caused big problems for them, but because they're true, they accept we have a free press and we have a right to publish them. But in this case, Harry's team turned down every application from everything from the BBC to the ITV to even, very pro Harry and Meghan newspapers like the Telegraph in UK. All of those were turned down, and they invited one single digital journalist from Harper's Bazaar that didn't have a news background to cover their trip. But what they did was they asked that person to put out reports each day to any media that was interested. But of course,
everyone's interested.
Well, everyone's interested, but they weren't news reports. I know people who received them and said it was like reading something out of Mills and Boon.
She said it was very saccharine. If she actually used saccharin, we would see more of that chair. Funny she should say that. She walked right into that one. I wouldn't imagine she knows what saccharin is. But if that's her way of saying that the stories had no meat, I wholly disagree. This whole exercise, again, something she knows a little about, this entire exercise is to belittle Harry and Meghan, to make them sound like some childish individuals who are just out there running around with no purpose. This was a year of planning, and it was flawless. It made an impact, and people in communities that rarely ever feel seen by the rest of the world suddenly felt as though they were actually recognized. Their culture, their art, music, all of that. M. Covington says, "Greetings, Baron and friends. I'd just like to say that the entire lot of them seem to live in an echo chamber. They only hear each other. They can't hear anyone from the outside world." Hear, hear, M. Covington. Exactly. Perfect. Echo chamber. That's exactly what it is. It's an echo chamber. The video that I posted earlier, the journalist said, "I don't know if they're being paid or not, but I'm glad they're here. Go back and tell the people what you witnessed. Tell them about Colombia." This is somebody who just passively accepts that there's royals and royal families. He doesn't have any great love for royals. He just respects the institution for what they stand for. And he hopes that they can make the world a better place. That's it. And then along comes Harry and Meghan, like a couple of Hollywood stars, like they got some rom-com coming out. And the world hasn't seen anything like this before. When was the last time they seen something like that? Because there was no chance that anybody looked at Charles and our lamented angel Diana like that. There was never an opportunity to see them as that type of couple. And Will and Kate, for what it was worth, they were just boring. They were boring. NBC cut back on their budget. They cut back on everything for their wedding because there was a complete lack of interest. Not the day of the wedding, before the wedding. They were like, you know what? This is not going to be 1981, so why spend the money? And this lady right here, I always remember with affection the nostalgia. What is that? German Patino, the true creator of what seemed to be an impossible dream to rescue the memory of Petronio Alvarez, poet, musician, composer from, what is that? Bonaventure, born in 1914. The passion, well, anyway, let me get to the part about Harry and Meghan. You know, that's all I want to get to. Where is it? Oh, there it is. It was a complete success to invite Harry and Meghan, vilified by royalty or the aristocratic, hypocritical, false brand rabble, who do not forgive the rebellious couple for leading a more authentic kind of life. Remember, they said people in Colombia didn't seem to know who they were. The Sussexes' visit to the San Basilio de Palenque, to several schools, their presence at the forum in which 400 Afro-descendant women from, Narino, Cauca, and Vale participated, and their participation in the Petrino was a hit, even though many of our Greek, aristocracy want to belittle it. And remember, there's a lot of Europeans that came over to South America by the thousands, because a lot of the countries in South America, they felt like things were too dark, if you know what I mean. And so they brought boatloads of white people over to try to, for lack of a better word, cleanse. That's what happened with Argentina. There are plenty of black people in Argentina, but they made sure that they pretty much pushed them out of public view, denied them any equality in job opportunities and government and such. And so for that reason, the population is extremely small. That was deliberate. And here you have a thriving culture, a thriving population of South American, Spanish-speaking people of African descent. The first free town, what do they call it? Slave-free town, or let me calm down. But anyway, it was the first place where slaves in these Americas could be free. Could you imagine what a major impact it was to have the Sussexes there? For the people who have wanted the world to know their story. And most of us are only just hearing it for the first time. There's more black people than you could shake a stick at in Latin America. The largest black population outside of Africa is in Brazil. Probably about 100 million or more. Far more than the United States. And now we've all learned so much more about that history, and the Royal Rota are doing the best that they can to try to make it about Harry and Meghan's indecisive, inauthentic, bumbling, attention-seeking tour. The Sussexes have made headlines with every move they make due to their connection to the British Crown. This intense scrutiny, as seen in recent years, has even led to their stepping down as working members of the royal family. Although the couple has been more private recently, they still make public appearances. Despite their aversion to traveling to the United Kingdom, due to safety concerns, they recently visited Colombia. A non-biased article. They're not putting the royal family down. They're certainly not lifting them up. They're just telling the truth. They recently visited Colombia. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex enjoyed a multi-day tour of the country invited by the Vice President, Francia Marquez. The trip appeared to be a joyous occasion, allowing them to discuss and learn more about Colombia's diverse culture. Isn't that what they always say? Oh, the royal family, they can discuss, and they really want to learn and hear about this and that and such and such. The one big difference is when it's Harry and Meghan, you know that somebody is actually listening. That's the difference. If you talk about these things with, and to be fair to Charles, Charles might listen, but he ain't likely to do nothing. But you at least know that he has a curiosity about things. Camilla, she don't give a crap one way or the other. She just wants to get back home so she can put her feet up. Will and Kate, no intellectual curiosity whatsoever. There never has been, and there never will be. They are two of some of the most useless people that have ever drawn a breath. Useless. They serve absolutely no purpose. They're doing nothing for the monarchy, but just using resources. As far as the institution of the monarchy went, the Sussexes had either to be safely in the tent in Britain or cast away and castigated as comprehensively as possible in order to reduce the threat of them eclipsing the rest of the family. A little late for that. They already have. This idea that the Sussexes are not authentic royals does not fly. It just does not fly. They're not former royals. They're still members of that family. And that's something, as far as Harry is concerned, it cannot be undone. If you want to take the titles, he will still be Prince Harry. That's his legal name. He's a prince. That's part of his name. And as his wife, she will still be a princess. You can take away the HRH. You can take away the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. None of that matters. There's nothing that comes with that Sussex title except the name. There's no land. There's no stipends or anything like that. Nothing comes with that title. It just sounds cool. And get this. No matter what happens, history will reflect that there has only been one Duchess of Sussex. Guess who that was or is? There has never been a Duchess of Sussex. Ever. There's only one. There's been two redheaded Dukes of Sussex, but there's only ever been one Duchess of Sussex. That right there makes history. And no matter what they say or do, the fact that she is the first confirmed person of African descent to marry into that crappy family, that cannot be undone. That's still a fact. A fact that has been digitally reproduced time and time again and sent out into cyberspace where it will float around forever. All of these things are facts. So there's really nothing that they can undo about the facts. The first Duchess of Sussex, she is a royal princess. Her children are prince and princess, as they are the grandchildren of the sovereign. That cannot be undone. So what else you got? You're going to send Becky the Blob out again? That didn't go so well. The only people listening to are those two idiots sitting across from her and a bunch of royal rodents, sycophants, monarchists, and even all of the monarchists do not go along with this. They're not, happy about the Sussexes, but they know what the facts are. Whether they like it or not, they know what the facts are. Vile and vicious. I like vile and vicious. How about that? Can we add vicious to that too? Vivacious, vile, vicious family. I don't even know what vivacious is, but I like the way it sounds. And this character right here, right-wingers fearful of their own tweets are posting useless disclaimers on their social media feeds. The secret barrister advises that the best thing Dan Woo Woo could do, legally speaking, is to simply stop being Dan Wooten. None of the information posted or repeated on this account is known by its author to be false, nor intended to stir racial or any hatred of, nor cause, what is that, psychological or physical harm to any person or group or of people, who, however, what's that, howsoever identified. Dan Wooten was an entertainment reporter. And at some point, they encouraged him to cover the royal family. He rather fancied Prince Harry. He had no use for Prince William, did not like Prince William. And it wasn't until he started that rumor, mentioned there was a rumor about a rural, competition out there with Kate and Rose Hanbury, allegedly. It wasn't until then that he decided to direct his gaze toward, I did say gaze as in view, his gaze toward the royal family. That still sounds weird, but okay. Plenty of those at the royal family, by the way. And when that happened, eventually they had him go after Harry and Meghan. He had no interest in them before that. But it was something about the Will and Kate thing that they had him put his full attention on the Sussexes. Now, when that happened, he was on to something because, well, you know what happened. Instead of him talking about the rural rivalry, he started getting all of these scoops from possibly from his old classmate, Jason Knopf, possibly, allegedly, and also somebody he swore he didn't know and never met, Christian Jones, both of which worked at Kensington Palace. He didn't know him, never met, didn't know Christian Jones, they said, even though there's a photo of them at the same party. So that's when he got to be a real nuisance for the Sussexes. He actually was physically attracted to Harry, mentioning him in several tweets, which I do have copies of them. But all of that changed. And I guess to get him to stop talking about one thing, they encouraged him to talk about another. So the point that I'm making is at one time, he couldn't get enough of entertainment. Drove poor Carolyn Flack away from here, so to speak. He loved television, loved all that stuff. And when he could get no support from people on the left wing, that's when he became this right winger. That's when he signed up to all of these conspiracies and such. And just like Angela Levin, he knows exactly what buttons to push to maintain his place in that community. He's not allowed on television anymore. So, like a lot of people that couldn't make it on television, like Hoghead Pierce Morgan, now he's on YouTube. He went from television and a major newspaper, The Sun, and the Daily Mail, and now he's on YouTube, citing conspiracies about this, that, and the other. Baby Sis Doll says Meghan and Harry knew their worth before they left. Hear, hear. Always know your worth. Always know your worth. And when you know your worth, nobody could take advantage of you. You got to know your worth. Thank you so much for those wise words. Now, don't forget, don't miss the premiere of Igualada, an intimate portrait of the country's first Black female vice president. The documentary, directed by Mia Botero, is now in Colombian cinemas. The film is an intimate portrait of Francia Marquez, the country's first Black vice president, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, don't forget that. I got to try to figure out how I can watch it. I'm going to guess it's got subtitles, but I do want to see it. But she's done a great thing, and I am just in awe of this lady's abilities. She is awesome. And with that, let me see. Sowing Seeds in New Home, funded in part by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Archwell Foundation. The Marquette professor is helping Afghan refugee women in Milwaukee find their place in a new land. So, funded in part by Archwell. I've heard of Archwell before. Of course I have, right? But yeah, so this is just another example of how Harry and Meghan have taken some of their own resources and used it to the benefit of others, to benefit others. So, but remember, they don't know what they're doing or why they do it. They just fly around for no good reason. And, that's it. So every weekend during the school year, refugee women and children from Afghanistan meet at Hamilton High School in Milwaukee's South Side for several hours. The women gather to sew, eat lunch, and share their experiences in what Dr. Louis Kanker, professor of social and cultural science in the Klingler College of Arts and Science, call restorative sewing circles. For the women, is a form of healing and connection. Their children, meanwhile, learn English. Oh, that makes sense. And then, of course, the children can help their parents with their English, right? For the women, it's a form of healing, connection. Okay, I did that. The sewing circle has provided a way for me to meet other women who speak the same language, explains Bibi, not her real name, of course, an Afghan refugee. It makes me feel more at home. In many ways, Bibi's story is similar to other refugees. Before relocating to the United States, she lived a perfect life in Afghanistan, surrounded by extended family, all happy and gainfully employed. She was enjoying life in the only country she had ever known. Everything quickly changed for Bibi in 2021. The news came that the United States was pulling its troops out of Afghanistan, ending a war spanning 2 decades. At risk due to her position on the war, Bibi sought refuge a world away. Best part of living in the United States is that I'm safe. Let me see. Kankar, I hope I'm saying that right, has been working on Afghan refugee settlements since December 2021, founded by Welcome USA, Marquette Institute for Women Leadership, and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Archwell Foundation. Okay, I think we're good with that one. Just more of the same. And let me see. And I'm done. So thank you very much. Oh my God, has it been 2 hours? What in the world have I talked about for 2 hours? Good grief, it doesn't even seem like it. It seemed like I just sat down. Anyway, thank you very much. Love you guys. Thank you so much moderators for keeping this a safe space. Always the Mod Squad. I go through and look at some of the stuff that you all have removed out of the comment section, and I don't disagree with any of it. I'm like, yeah, that person needed to go. So I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching Royal Sussex, and cheers to the Sussexes. And we will put the story straight. We're not going to let them get away with misrepresenting their good deeds, and yeah, we're just not going to let them get away with that. Oh, you're welcome, Dansby. Thank you very much. Heather Stroud, thank you so much for being here. Greatly appreciate it. All right. Good night. I'm not going to drag it out. Good night, you guys. I will see ya. I'm sorry. I was listening to this other podcast. I'm not gonna play it, but same thing. Same thing. Let me see, what podcast is this? I don't know, but one of the squatties says right here, the lies they tell. How can you not know who they are, especially if you watch Betty's funeral? Exactly. They're still trying to maintain this thing that people didn't know who Harry and Meghan. I'm sorry, I cannot say that with a straight face. Tried to spread about Harry and UK race riots, etc. Didn't go far because the UK barred from attending the engagement, so the nonsense didn't go everywhere. Apparently, there was no coverage in the UK or Colombia media about, I guess, about the riots in the UK. Oh, okay. Interesting. Oh, there's another one here. Yeah, that's something that they have been. Oh, I'm sorry. There's nothing on the screen, but that's something that has really bothered them. I think that they are very triggered by the fact that there was no access, because they could have gotten some good mileage out of this last Sussex tour, right? And when I say they, I'm talking about the tabloid media. But there would be such a huge price to pay if they ever, in a moment of weakness, said, "Oh yes, you're invited. Come along. Just try to be fair," which we know that they would use it as an opportunity to try to make sure that the Sussexes were never invited any place again. They'd probably make up. I won't even speculate about what they could do, but I'm just thinking to myself how much damage they would try to do with their nonsense. Think about it. If the tabloid media would spend that much time trashing the countries that the rest of the royal family has visited and that Harry and Meghan are currently there in those countries, imagine what they would do to the Sussexes if you allowed them near those events while they're making their visits. Imagine how much damage that they could try. They could try. That one reporter, he was saying so much negative stuff, that Pisa guy, it seemed to me like he was really stuck in his hotel room, almost as though he wasn't allowed to go anywhere. Now, I'm sure that wasn't the case, but he probably just didn't feel safe after all of that stuff he was saying. You know, if you want to be hypercritical, it's better to do it outside of the country than inside of the country. Okay, so I'm done. I'm going to go. Thank you very much, you all. This has been very interesting the past couple of days, I must say. And we'll make it do what it do.